Tonight, President Trump dismissing new impeachment calls from Democrats and defending his July phone call with the leader of Ukraine, insisting he never threatened to withhold military aid if Ukraine didn't investigate accusations against Joe Biden and his son. At the time the aid was suspended, it's since been released.
Did you tell the Ukrainian leader that they would have the aid only if they investigated Joe Biden and his family?
No, I didn't. I did not make a statement that you have to do this or I'm not going to give you aid.
But according to the Washington Post, citing people familiar with the matter, a government whistleblower alleges the president did pressure the president of Ukraine to investigate a Ukrainian company which had given Hunter Biden a position on its board while Joe Biden was vice president. The president raising eyebrows with this comment about media coverage.
If a Republican ever did what Joe Biden did, if a Republican ever said what Joe Biden said, they'd be getting the electric chair by right now.
There's been no evidence of wrongdoing by Biden.
Why is he on the phone with a foreign leader, trying to intimidate a foreign leader, if that's what happened? That appears what happened. You should be looking at Trump.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who has resisted calls for impeachment, warning the administration's refusal to turn over the complaint could be a new chapter of lawlessness, which will take us into a whole new stage of investigation. Other Democrats demanding impeachment now.
He is jeopardizing and endangering our democracy every single day.
How seriously are you taking the impeachment, Tom?
Not at all seriously. We had a perfect phone call with the president of Ukraine. Everybody knows it. It's just a Democrat witch hunt. Here we go again. The one who's got the problem is Biden. What Biden did is a disgrace. What his son did is a disgrace.
And Kristen, I know Democrats right now really want to get a look at that whistleblower complaint.
That's right. The Senate's top Democrat, Chuck Schumer, says he wants a subpoena to see that complaint, which the administration refuses to give to Congress. Now, we could learn more on Thursday. That's when the acting director of national intelligence testifies.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.